Hello everyone! If you want to speak French, but you're struggling with conjugating tables, today we are dealing with that. Because if you want to make sentences in spoken French, you need to use French verbs. That's the basis. And if today you can't make confident sentences in French, it's probably because you're looking for the right verb and conjugation in your head while speaking French. So you are hesitating. But why are you hesitating? Because of the way you've been learning French. Because you've learned conjugating tables by heart. And that's the mistake. Learning by heart can't make you speak. Because it does not get you to formulate sentences in French on your own. So here I show you how to make sentences right away, with the right verb and without learning any conjugating table. In this video, we're going to practice the verb for to do and to make in French. I'm going to give you some versions of this verb. And you're going to make French sentences out loud with this verb. And I'll guide you all along the video. I'll also give you other words, and you'll see yourself making proper sentences in spoken French. But you really have to make the sentences out loud in French when I ask you. That's the only way it can work. So don't take notes, you don't need it. I'll guide you and I'll give you all the words you need. Really think of what you want to say and make the sentences in French. So first, I introduce briefly the verb for to do and to make as we saw it in the previous video, and then we go further. So if you want to understand the verb for to do and to make in French, you really have to understand that to do and to make in French relates to a fact. So for instance, you have the word a factory. A factory is the place where people make things. So you take that word fact and you translate it in French and that becomes fait. And that sound, fait, is really important to use the verb for to do and to make. So for instance, how do you say you informal make? So now we are starting. So you have to make the sentences in French out loud. We start very simple. So can you say you informal make? Tu fais. So there's always a silent ending, but I'm not going to cover that here because it's spoken French, so we don't say silent letters here. So you informal make is tu fais. Now can you say, for instance, he makes, just he makes. Il fait. Now let's say the word for an error. What's an error in French? Une erreur. So that's almost the same word, and the une and erreur tend to merge together, and it sounds une erreur. So can you say he makes a mistake? Il fait une erreur. Now, if you want to say to be careful, let's say she's careful or she pays attention. In French, that's the same expression. But in French, you don't say pay attention, you say make attention. So you're going to say she makes attention. And attention is attention. So how do you say she pays attention in French? Saying she makes attention. So just she pays attention. Elle fait attention. And you see in French when you have a word that ends with the sound of a vowel and the following word starts with the sound of a vowel, These two vowels tend to merge together. So fais attention sounds more like fais attention. We have the E sound of fais and then the A of attention. That sounds ea, ea, fais attention. Elle fait attention. Now can you say she makes a mistake? Elle fait une erreur. And now let's make a negative statement. So in French, if you want to make a negative statement, a negative sentence, you have to use the word pas that you place just after the verb. So can you say, she doesn't pay attention? Elle fait pas attention. So pas just after fait. Elle fait pas attention. And no ne in spoken French in the negative sentences. Just pas. So elle fait pas attention. So that's the basis, and you can go and watch the previous episode if you're not comfortable with that. We see that in more details. But now, let's go a bit further. So let's say just first, he makes. How do you say he makes? Il fait. Now, let's see they make. So when they represents men first. They men make. So they men in French is il with a silent S. There's an S, but you don't pronounce it. So he and they men sound the same. So as we have he makes, il fait, in order to make the difference with they make, that make needs to be different. So with they, with il plural in French, make is font. So with a silent T, just font. So how do you say they men make? Ils font. And that's it. So now can you say they men pay attention? Ils font attention. Now let's say they women pay attention. They women pay attention. Elles font attention. Elles font attention. And how do you say she pays attention? Elle fait attention. So you see in French, the difference between she makes and they women make is not in the they in spoken French. It's in the verb. When you have the sound fait, you know that you mean she makes. But when you have the sound on, font, you know that you're using the plural, they women. So, they women pay attention, elles font attention. And now can you say, they women don't pay attention? Elles font pas attention. And now can you say, he makes a mistake? Il fait une erreur. And how do you say they men make a mistake? Ils font une erreur. Now let's use the verb for to go in French and let's say he goes. Just that. How do you say he goes? Il va. So again, you can see the previous video if you don't know the verb to go. But with singular pronouns, most of singular pronouns, go or goes is va. Just the sound va. So il va. That's the va that you can find in the word invader, for instance, in English. You have also that va that comes from the same root. So he goes, il va. But then, if you want to say they men go, here we have the same pattern that we just saw with the verb for to do and to make. The verb go with they in French sounds vont. So with the same ONT with a silent T that sounds on. But in French here with go it's a V. Vont. So how do you say they men go? Ils vont. And here, that's the same principle. Because in French, if you hear il, you can't make the difference between he and they men, because they both sound il. But you can make the difference thanks to the verb. If it's va, it's for he, and it's vont, it's for they. So they men go is ils vont. Now, what's the verb for to do or to make? But here the infinitive form, just to make. Faire. So now can you say, they men are going to make a mistake? Ils vont faire une erreur. So they go and they are going are the same in French. It's both ils vont. So ils vont faire une erreur. Now can you say the women are going to make a mistake? Elles vont faire une erreur. And now can you say they are going to pay attention when they represent women? So the women are going to pay attention. Elles vont faire attention. Elles vont faire attention. So here we have a common pattern in French. We have the sound on silent T for they. That's a common pattern. That's not the main pattern for they. It's more a side pattern. But that's still good to know. And that's how you learn to speak French. By directly making sentences with patterns. And then, if you want to go further, I have a complete course based on that method. You have the link in the description. But now let's see the word for if in French. If is si. Si. So can you say they are going to make a mistake if they don't pay attention when they represent women. So let's say that block by block first. How do you say? The women are going to make a mistake. Elles vont faire une erreur. And then, if the women don't pay attention. Si elles font pas attention. And now all together. So the women are going to make a mistake if the women don't pay attention. Elles vont faire une erreur si elles font pas attention. And you see the structure, they are going to make a mistake or they are going to pay attention is a very good structure to know in French. Elles vont and then what you want to say. Because that allows you to speak in the future, but without using the future tense in French. Just the verb to go in present tense and then the verb that you mean. That's really common in French. So now can you say, if the men don't pay attention, the men are going to make a mistake. And let's say it block by block first. So first, if the men don't pay attention. Si ils font pas attention. And then, the men are going to make a mistake. Ils vont faire une erreur. And now, all together. So, if the men don't pay attention, the men are going to make a mistake. Si ils font pas attention, ils vont faire une erreur. Now let's see the word for because. Because in French is parce que. But actually nobody says parce que in France. In spoken French, you're more likely to hear parce que. So you just remove or skip the E sound in the middle of parce que and it becomes parce que. So can you say because you pay attention with the informal you? So because you informal pay attention. Parce que tu fais attention. Now let's say because she pays attention. But here you need to do something. To say because she pays attention, you need to say because she. So in French you have parce que and then elle. But elle starts with a vowel. So when you have parce que and then elle, the que is also shortened, but even in written French. You remove the E that you replace by an apostrophe. So you just have the sound que and then directly elle. So it sounds qu'elle. Parce qu'elle. So can you say because she pays attention? Parce qu'elle fait attention. Now can you say because he doesn't pay attention? Because he doesn't pay attention. Parce qu'il fait pas attention. So, because he is parce que and then il that also starts with a vowel. So, parce que il becomes parce qu'il. The parce que and il merge. Parce qu'il. Parce qu'il fait and then the pas just after the verb to mark the negation. Parce qu'il fait pas attention. So then can you say, he's going to make a mistake because he doesn't pay attention? First, let's say it block by block. Can you say, he's going to make a mistake? Il va faire une erreur. And then let's add, because he doesn't pay attention. Parce qu'il fait pas attention. And now all together. Can you say, he's going to make a mistake because he doesn't pay attention? Il va faire une erreur parce qu'il fait pas attention. And now can you say the same sentence but in plural? Can you say, they men are going to make a mistake because they don't pay attention? First, can you say, they men are going to make a mistake? And then, because they men don't pay attention. And then all together. So, they men are going to make a mistake because they don't pay attention. Ils vont faire une erreur parce qu'ils font pas attention. And now let's say, she is going to make a mistake because she doesn't pay attention. Can you say that in one sweep? So, she's going to make a mistake because she doesn't pay attention. Elle va faire une erreur parce qu'elle fait pas attention. And now can you say, they women are going to make a mistake because they women don't pay attention. So again in one sweep. So they women are going to make a mistake because they women don't pay attention. Elles vont faire une erreur parce qu'elles font pas attention. So you see, this way you play with French sentences, and I hope you find it fun. You're actually never learning any conjugating table by heart. But as you're practicing, you're still learning French verbs. And you're also learning to make sentences in spoken French. So as I told you, if you want to speak French, you can get my complete course, Spoken French Now. And you can do the first lessons for free if you want to try. Basically, that's the speaking method that you just experienced, but applied to the whole A2 grammar. So you can quickly have simple conversations in French. You'll find the link in the description, and I see you there.